We are back in business. Jayson Confused Podcast. I'm Jeremiah Broderick. Joining me, Matt Mislinski. We are joining you on a rather sad night. This is after the loss to the Charlotte Hornets. End-to-end beatdown.
Yep.
Really haven't seen a ton of losses this decisive
I
this year
think
for this team.
29 is our worst loss of the year.
Score-wise, maybe not, but from opening tip to the last play of the game,
Yeah, there was
Charlotte was
never.
winning this one. There was
Yeah.
no second quarter run where it seemed like we were in it. There was no big comeback attempt that almost happened.
Yeah, the third quarter we found some offensive rhythm, and I was like, that was our best quarter. We still lost that quarter. We couldn't cut it after halftime. I don't think we ever cut it to below 15.
Yeah, it wasn't a good win. It wasn't a good game.
Yeah.
I don't want to overreact too much to it. I have a few themes from it. We're still 12 wins out of our last 15 games.
Yeah.
And I think we can kind of hang our hat on that a little bit.
Yeah. I think
So what was what stood out to you most from this?
from the Charlotte game, I think Peyton Pritchard going scoreless.
That's happened 2 out of the last 3 games. So that is
Yeah. So
an
I don't
issue.
know if it could be he's dealing with something. We were really high on him. Once he moved back to the bench, he was on fire, had 4 or 5 games in a row of 20 plus points, 25 points, stuff like that. Seems like he's either just really cooled off or he's dealing with something, but he doesn't seem as explosive. He's still getting a little bit to that short mid-range, long mid-range shot that he likes, but it's just not falling for him right now. I think that was also just the story of tonight was there were a lot of open looks that just didn't fall from pretty much everybody, whether it was Jaylen Brown or Ugo Gonzalez missed some threes, Sam Hauser struggled a little bit. So yeah, I think the
When
theme of this game is when your opponent shoots really well and you shoot really poorly, you generally don't have a good chance to win. And then I think the other thing, which I'm sure we'll talk about, was the defense.
Yeah, so just on Peyton Pritchard, I don't know if he's dealing with something or if it's just people have realized that they can load up on him. Because when he's on the floor without Jaylen Brown, he's gonna shoot. And when your offense is that predictable, a lot of times teams know that if they just can put a bigger body on him who's gonna stay with him and is expecting him to shoot, it's harder to generate offense that way. It does seem like he's also 2 weeks ago, when he was just killing it, averaging 25 off the bench, he was getting into the paint and pushing guys around.
Yeah.
And now he seems to be getting into the paint, falling down and hoping for a foul. And maybe 6'1", probably in actuality 5'11", Peyton Pritchard pushing 7-footers around wasn't a sustainable offense.
Yeah,
He's
I know the
still
women
very
will agree with
talented.
me when 5'10", 5'11" guys say they're 6 feet, it leads to issues down the line. And,
Like,
maybe that's part of it. But even a week ago, like you said, there was that clip from the Lakers game that kind of went viral of him just shoving Vanderbilt, I believe, off of him and sending
yeah.
him to the ground. He has that strength, but it's just not showing up right now.
Yeah, and I'm not entirely sure. That could be a slight injury, you know?
Yeah.
He has to use all of his strength to push a 6'10" guy across the court like that. I
Yeah.
think there was a little bit of a Vanderbilt thought he was going to get the offensive foul, so he
A hundred
sold it a little
percent.
bit.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know if Peyton Pritchard has super strength. The defense in this one I thought was the bigger problem
Yes.
overall. They only scored, what was it, 100? We've scored 118 in plenty of basketball games this year. I'm saying this backwards. The offense was an issue because
Yeah.
we only scored 89. The defense stood out to me most. It seemed like we couldn't figure out what big to play, was my biggest takeaway from that. Their bigs were doing a great job of protecting the rim and switching out. Whenever it didn't matter if it was Garza, if it was Vooch, if it was Nimi, our drop defense was just under the rim.
Yeah.
And it seemed obvious that they were just going around screens and shooting wide open jump shots. And you really can't do that against this team. Because, Con Knipple, Brandon Miller, even Kobe White, they're just going to feast on those.
Yeah.
And we've played drop a lot this season, but it's usually drop with like a slight hedge
Yeah.
where, they'll come around the screen and Nimi will just like stunt at them slightly to make sure they don't immediately shoot. And by that point, whoever's guarding them can recover.
Yeah.
Here, if they even like lost a step on the screen, it was just wide open after that.
Yeah, I thought that was probably one of the more notable things was like obviously Diabate was their starting center, played well, but like is not a shooter, is not a 3-point threat. I think Keita having like both feet solidly in the paint, like close to the restricted area for a top of the key screen. It's just, we were asking for it. I thought it was probably some of the worst like screen recovery I've seen from us all season. I thought I saw Sam Hauser a lot, just like getting lost on screens, but it was kind of everybody. Ugo a couple times. We were just, it felt like we were always 2 steps behind the ball trying to catch up anytime they set a screen.
See, I think that's been a problem all season in a way, where our guys aren't great run around screen guys. They play with a ton of effort and they run through screens, but they're
The
hitting
Ugo
every
Gonzalez
screen.
method.
The Ugo Gonzalez method, where he just refuses to believe the screen is there and he refuses to quit.
Yeah.
One like defensive skill that Marcus Smart was amazing at was like maneuvering your hips around guys. So you were able to just like sprint by them without touching the screen. And the guys we have right now play defense with a ton of effort and don't quit when they get hit on a screen, but they get hit on the screen. And, that has some benefits that caused a few offensive fouls in this game. Ugo's been able to draw a ton of those recently. But if you're going to do that and play deep drop, there's just going to be some open jump shots. And I don't know if we underestimated Charlotte. I think we did underestimate Charlotte just in the amount of intensity we came out with, but they got some shooters on that team.
Yeah, 100%. And I think in terms of the intensity, I mean, what was so shocking about this game and going back a little bit last week's loss against Denver is like this team in February had like the best, I think, defensive rating that we held opponents to like 96 or 98 points per game for the entire month of February, which is the best any team has done in the last 8 years. So we had built this like really gritty defensive identity where we're gonna be fighting through screens, fighting around screens. We're not giving up like 118 points. And so like this was definitely a step off from that in a whole bunch of ways. I thought the intensity was a little bit lackluster. Some of it, like LaMelo Ball didn't even have a good game. Con Knipple had a pretty solid game. Brandon Miller really impressed me, but just the space that we were giving those guys to get to their shots, it was tough. And I think part of it, like that was our third game in 4 nights. We've had a pretty packed schedule. I think we've had 5 games in the last 7 days. But Charlotte was also on a back-to-back, so
Yeah, it's a little hard to say that when Charlotte got into Boston at 5 a.m. this morning.
yeah.
From their back to back. Let's stay on the bigs for a second because I have a couple concerns here. One,
Okay.
is Neemias Queta dealing with a knee injury? Because he looked slow out there. He looked hesitant to run guys off the line, which he's been doing all season. And there was a few times where it seemed like he subbed himself out to get looked at by the trainers. I know he sat out our last game versus the Bucks. They said it was for rest, but it does seem like he's at least like a little beat up coming down the stretch of the season.
Yeah, and I mean that it's interesting because that was coming off of his best game of the season against
Yeah.
Philly where he had 27 and 17 with 3 blocks. So you kind of like were hoping that he would capitalize on some of that momentum and then he had that. Next day we play the Bucks. I'm like, "All right, it makes sense to give him some rest there." But he definitely came out looking flat tonight. And again, whether that I mean the whole team did, but it does seem like there could be something, just the explosiveness. It feels like his jump isn't there the way we're kind of expecting it for rebounds. So I don't know. I'm hoping we get some kind of update. It might have just been an off night for him, but again, coming off that performance against Philly, this was not the version of Neemias Queta I was expecting to see, especially on the defensive end.
It's tough timing if he does have an injury. We'll get into Jayson Tatum return rumors later, but I'd love for those two to actually get some time on the court together before the end of the season.
Yeah.
And even if the last few games don't count a ton towards the standings and we can rest guys, it seems like this is going to be an important stretch for this team to kind of learn how to play together. How are you feeling about Vooch? Because I thought his defensive impact on this game was kind of rough. Only played 17 minutes. We opted for Garza a lot going down the stretch, and kind of when we really needed to get some momentum, we went to Garza. Since he's been here, he had that one Brooklyn game where he just seemed unstoppable. Apart from that, I don't know that he's played much better than Luka Garza.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's bringing a different skill set to the table, which I understand. His shooting percentages since he's come to Boston, 40%, 47% from the field, 35% from three. His rebounding, it feels like, has taken a small step back. I think he's also playing probably less minutes for us than he did in Chicago. I think at the end of the day, it's still like, it seems like he's still trying to find his fit. There were a couple times like, it seems like Derek White really enjoys passing to him, but he's just kind of throwing it to him. And it seemed there were a couple plays tonight where Vucevic didn't really know what he was going to do with the ball when he caught it. He was kind of caught between like a post up and seeing if the defense would collapse on him, and he had anybody to throw it out to. I think that was also a theme tonight across the board, but I noticed it more with Vucevic is like, you catch the ball and you don't really know what you're doing. And then there was a little bit of hot potato of like, I'm just going to give it back. We're gonna keep going back and forth. So I think it's still part of it is him settling into his role here and trying to figure out what that looks like, which I think we see fairly often with like bigger, not necessarily like huge name, but bigger acquisitions that have to fill 24 plus minutes into a lineup every night. Post trade deadline, I know I've talked before about Derek White when he came to Boston at that trade deadline, spent the rest of that year seemingly like trying to figure it out on the fly. And so I think there's some of that going on. I also think it is a little bit of a we don't really know what big we're playing in any given situation. We still haven't really played two bigs with Vooch and Keita. We are relying a little bit more on Garza, and I think it makes sense from the perspective of like if I'm Joe Mazzulla, like how many games, especially after he got inserted back into the lineup in December or January, like Luka Garza just fueled these big runs with his rebounding. But right now it seems like Vucevic is kind of floating in terms of what his role is, and I don't think that's great for anybody.
I don't think he is. I think his role's been pretty steady since we got him. Like, this is the first game where we've had to go to Luka Garza or gone to Luka Garza because we were just losing so bad. And in the past, it's been pretty evenly split minutes wise 24 for Keita, 24 for Vooch, plays off the bench with Pritchard all the time, and kind of like a steady spot in the rotation. You mentioned his shooting percentages. Do you know what Luka Garza's shooting this year?
He's shooting crazy from three. I know that. He was at like 50% at the All-Star break or something like that.
He's 44% from three, and then 57 from the field. So even from two, he's been a much more efficient player. And I think part of that's we're not running these post-ups for him, where he's kind of forcing shots up. When Vooch's jump hook's going, it looks really cool. It's never been one of his more efficient shots.
Yeah, and I think that's more what I meant when I said like he's trying to figure out his role. It's not necessarily minutes wise. Like I don't think he's worried about where he fits in the rotation. I think it's more like when he's on the floor, what is his role in the offense? Like how much is he expected to score and where are we getting him the ball and what are we expecting him to do with it once he has it? And I think that's where it's kind of, he's demonstrated some stuff like he's only been on the team a few weeks, but he's already demonstrated the ability to like pass out of that low post and find shooters. On nights like tonight where we're just not, there wasn't a ton of off-ball screening to get shooters open. There wasn't a lot of like, when Vucevic got the ball in the post, it wasn't a bunch of guys being like, let me make myself open in case he has to pass out. And it felt like he was forcing up some like questionable shots, including that hook that like, again, when it's going, it looks great. When it's not, you're like, was that the best shot we could have created with 10 seconds left on the shot clock?
Yeah. I don't think you can blame the rest of the team for the lack of screening. Like when Keita's out there, I think there's a lot more screening. Vooch does set some good screens, but I think it's another area where Garza has him beat. And my worry is that we're going to see him play more than Garza, even if he's not the best player to win, because he has such a kind of status in the league. You know, he's a former All NBA guy, one of the top guys out of his draft class, made multiple All Star teams, had this really long career. And we've seen in the past that Joe tends to give preference to the veterans, like many NBA coaches. And it almost feels like a big man Evan Fournier situation where he's kind of the big acquisition at the deadline. He's this veteran who's used to scoring 20 points in a lesser role for a more competitive team than he was on, which doesn't always work out well. And I think giving up the stuff we did at the deadline, you know, multiple picks, Anthony Simons, which tonight could have been an Anthony Simon tonight. Like, it seemed like we needed another scorer, and if Vooch isn't that, it kind of makes his role a little unclear,
Yeah,
especially
well,
going into the playoffs.
I think when we need another scorer off the bench, the answer should be Peyton Pritchard, and it's just
That's
it's like really confusing to me. Like he's just not. It seems like overnight he was like, yeah, I'm gonna pencil him in for 20 to 25 points off the bench. And then like vanished in back-to-back games, turned the ball over way more than he usually does with like no like he has the best assist to turnover ratio in the league. And tonight, zero assists, two turnovers, only played 24 minutes. Again, trying to figure out some of it is I'm wondering, like, is Joe Mazzulla like 5 games in 7 days? We're like not excusing the loss or not excusing like Charlotte obviously also is on a back to back and got in late and everything like that. But outside of the scope of just this game, like, is Joe Mazzulla adjusting minutes to kind of compensate for how much everybody has been playing in the last week? Like, who would you guess our second leader in minutes tonight was behind Jaylen Brown?
second leader in minutes tonight behind Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, Jaylen Brown had 34. Who had 32?
I would say Derek White.
It is not Derek White.
Is it Baylor Shireman?
It is Baylor Shireman,
Yeah.
which is kind of so. That's where
He's
I'm like,
well.
he has been playing well, but it is making me wonder if like was tonight an opportunity where again maybe we just went in taking Charlotte for granted a little bit, and we were like, we're going to give some guys some more rest tonight. Like Pritchard isn't going to get as many minutes. Derek White is going to stay under 30 minutes. Again, Cade only had 16 tonight. It would make sense if he's, again, coming off a rest day, if they felt like he's dealing with some type of nagging injury or something like that. It makes sense to give him more limited minutes. Happy to see Ugo get 25, but it did feel like there was a little bit more dispersion of minutes, like we were maybe trying to get some guys some breathing.
I don't think so. I think it was really we saw a lot of timeouts get called where Joe is just kind of like rushing to figure out what lineup to put on the floor because when we're not playing well, he tries to switch up the lineup to just get some life out there. And that's kind of what we saw tonight, where the lineups were a little all over the place just because he was trying to like get energy out onto the floor. And it seemed like Baylor had energy tonight, and Peyton Pritchard very much did not have energy tonight. So in a way, he was going with the most effective guys, and maybe you could say that like the more tired guys were less effective, but I think it's much more a matter of like what he saw tonight and what he thought was going to help us win.
Yeah, I mean, I just real quick to touch on energy, guys. In a game where we need energy all season, I've been like, put in Jordan Walsh. And Jordan Walsh tonight did not look good. Was getting beat off the dribble by guys that I know he can defend, that he's proven, like he's been handling some of the best ball handlers in the league, some of the best like point of attack guys downhill. And tonight he just looked slow. He looked behind the play. He was another one who like was getting beat on these screens. Yeah, just a tough look from Jordan Walsh. And I still did like 5 rebounds in 15 or 16 minutes, but in a game where we really needed just more energy and more intensity, it seemed like tonight he just didn't have it.
Even in the last few games where he's looked pretty good on the defensive end, I think his lack of shooting ability is starting to catch up with him. He's shooting a good percentage this year, but there are a lot of plays where the ball gets swung around to him in the corner and he pump fakes, drives. Sometimes it ends up awesome with a layup. Sometimes he has to kick it back out, and then we have to take a tough shot at the buzzer. And then when you have guys like Baylor Shireman, like Ugo, who can take that shot, do take that shot, and hit it at a high percentage, it's just much easier to play those guys.
Yeah.
Any part of this game make you wish we drafted Cockbrenner?
No,
He had
absolutely
some
not.
nice blocks. You're not
He
a
did
not a.
he did have some nice blocks. It's less about that and more about like I am pretty happy with the team that we have. Again, it feels like we're only 3 deep at the big man position, but I would argue like our third big is as good a third big as you can kind of ask for with what Luka Garza has shown this season. Yeah, and then we've got Amari Williams who's 2 years away from maybe seeing some floor time again.
Well, that's the thing. We drafted Amari Williams instead of
Yeah.
Cockbrenner, where if we had drafted Cockbrenner, we wouldn't have had to make kind of a desperation play at the deadline to get a big in. And I would rather have a young, cheap big on a long term deal than an old, expensive big that's expiring.
So here's my thing is, would that be the case though? Like, he played 14 minutes tonight. He ended up with 6, 2, and 1, and 2 blocks and a steal. If we gave Amari Williams 14 minutes in a night, I believe that Cockbrenner like vastly outperforms him? Like, not really. I think Amari hasn't gotten the minutes. I don't think subbing in another unproven kind of rookie guy would automatically mean like, no, we don't need Vooch. We've got this guy. I don't think they're altogether wildly different players. I think they've just had wildly different amounts of exposure to NBA minutes.
I don't know if that's true because we've been pretty desperate for big man minutes, especially at the beginning of the season. And you're also just saying one stat line from Cockbrenner. Till recently, he was leading the league in effective field goal percentage. He's still at 75%, which has to be top three, top five. 8 points, 6 rebounds, 1.5 blocks a game off the bench. That's a really solid rookie season.
Yeah, I think it's more that part of it, I know that like both of us early in this season were like we desperately want some Amari Williams minutes, and it's like we were hurting for big man depth and big man minutes and everything like that. And we talked about in previous pods like are we saving his two-way games for later in the season when we might need him due to an injury or whatever?
I think he's just
It
very
also
turnover prone.
So's Kata, and I love
Not
him,
as
but
much.
no. I
Nearly
hear
as
you.
bad.
I hear you. No, I think it's just we decided Joe wanted to play small ball fives for like a quarter of the season at least. And so it's been difficult to,
That's
I
my
don't
other
know.
problem with the Kata minutes right now is we're completely off of small ball five lineups. And that's part of the reason we can't get minutes for these wings is earlier in the season, if we were having this game, we would have gone to the Ugo, Jordan Walsh as our big men, just sprint up and down the floor and see if we can outrun them for a quarter lineup. And right now, it feels like we're too married to Vooch getting 20 minutes a game that we really can't do those kind of funky lineups anymore. Not that I think those were necessary every game, but our lineups have become a lot more stagnant since then.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like our three bigs tonight played 15, 16, and 17 minutes apiece.
Yeah.
And it felt like absolutely in that third quarter when it felt like we were making some progress. Derek White had like an 8-2 run by himself to start that third quarter. And it felt like that could have been a moment where we capitalized. And it is a moment where in the past we would see Joe Mazzulla be like, all right, screw it. We're getting back then like Josh Minot out at the 5 and we're going to be athletic and we're going to be fast and we're going to like run up and down the floor. I don't know. I don't love the idea of being married to like guaranteeing a certain number of minutes to any of our big men. And Luka Garza, a lot
Except
of it
for
was
Kata.
like, except for Kate. If
Guaranteed some
Kata's
minutes at this point.
hurt or resting, like whatever we're
Yeah.
doing with him. But yeah, it does feel like, especially when we're down 20 in the third quarter, I am one of those people who is like, yeah, don't keep the starters out there because the starters got you into a 20-point hole. Like, throw a bench unit in, like all new guys, and see what they can get you. Because the story of this Celtics season has been a lot of like we're down relatively big, and then we're fueled on a run by the Minots, the Walshes, the Ugos, the Shiremans lately, and just wanting more opportunities for those guys also to expand, to not just be like, I'm going to stand here on the wing and shoot corner threes, but like, let's put Jordan Walsh in the dunker spot because Vucevic is not having a good night, or Garza is, you know, not
Well, I
not
think we
rebounding that
tried a
well.
lot of lineups tonight. Like we were switching out guys like crazy, just kind of trying to find the right combination. And Joe goes with the guys that are playing the best, which tonight, like Derek White needed to be in every lineup, or we weren't gonna put together a run. Jalen had some good run. Like this wasn't his best game. There was definitely some times he was forcing it, but there was also when we were getting on runs to come back in it, it was primarily Jalen and Derek White. So I don't know that, and like we gave Jordan Walsh some run out there, and he didn't look great. Ugo looked good and he got minutes towards the end of the game. So I don't think it's as simple as like just bench the starters when we're not playing well, when the starters aren't like a monolith, you know?
Yeah, no, no,
When
no.
two of the
That's
starters are playing better than anybody else, we're not going to sit them just to make a point.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's what I meant. It's more that like let's move away from kind of the classic rotation of like in this instance that means more like why do we need to play a traditional big? Like Vucevic, Keita, like neither of them had good nights. Garza came in late and Garza's whole thing is like rebounding and he couldn't really rebound tonight.
Especially
Part
when
of it
we're
is
not
like
that worried about a Diabate post up.
yeah, and I think that's also part of it is like Jordan Walsh didn't play particularly well tonight, but I was also looking at who he was matched up on, and I was like, yeah, if we don't play a traditional big at the five and put Jordan Walsh in there, I'm confident he can guard Diabate. And that maybe gives him a little bit less trouble on the defensive end. He can be a little bit more fluid. If he's at the five, you can use him more in the dunker spot. You can space the floor a little bit more if you stretch him out. So just like the versatility of looks and especially how many guys we have who can play two, three, four positions. It just would have been nice to see us move away from like we have to have a five on the floor throughout all of those lineups.
Not Jalen Brown's best night. Not a huge point total for him. Seems to have kind of moved away from that mid range jumper. I don't know if he just kind of stopped getting that call where, because at the beginning of the season, I said, like, if they're calling rule of verticality on Jalen Brown jump shots, he's
Yeah.
going to be unstoppable in that area. And it seemed like at a certain point this season, refs figured that out. And when he went straight up and initiated contact with his elbow, they stopped calling that as a defensive foul because I think they realized he's going to score 50 a night if he can just get free throws whenever he wants.
Yeah, but
Um,
it works for SGA and Luca, so I don't know understand
I
why
don't.
Jalen is the
Yeah,
only one getting punished for it.
I don't know if it's that. I don't. He also kind of looks tired to me,
Mm-hmm.
where he's been carrying a very heavy load this year and getting into the mid range and having guys' bodies draped all over you, having to take 10 dribbles and push guys off. It's a lot of work. It's a very physical job. And tonight, like, he's guarding LaMelo Ball. He's guarding Con Knipple. Like, he's always guarding the other team's best guy, challenging them, then carrying our offense, leading the league in field goal attempts. It's a lot of work. He was out for a rest game against the Bucks, which is something we really haven't seen him do in the past. Take rest
Yeah.
games on back to backs. So it kind of seems like he's tired. And I think, honestly, in some ways, I think this loss was well timed. Because right now the rumors are that Jayson Tatum may be coming back Friday. And I think if he had come back when we were in full swing, there would have been a little bit more of the rumblings of like, is he disrupting the team? Whose team is this? And right now, if he comes back Friday, it's going to be much more of like, a thank God you're here. We need another offensive weapon.
Yeah. I mean, I had heard Friday. If it's not Friday, I had heard the 14th against the Wizards.
To me, he had the 5 episodes of The Quiet Work, which is his
His journey back.
it's a docu-series he's making with NBC and releasing online. And originally they said they were going to release one a week. And then he released one, then he released the other like 4 days later, and then he just released two at the same time. So we only have one more left. Like they sped them up intentionally. ESPN also reported that it's not if, but when Jayson Tatum comes back, which seems like they're getting a little bit more comfortable talking to media about it. Bill Simmons said he heard it was Friday. So there are, if it's not Friday, it's probably the next game. Like it's coming up pretty imminently.
Well, there was that whole thing about he wants his first game back to be a home game, which is why it said the 14th against the Wizards is the next one that we have after Friday.
Sure.
I don't think you're wrong about the timing, and I think some of it's overblown anyway of like how
Oh,
much of
it's
a
all overblown.
disruption. It's such bullshit. It's Jalen's team now. How is he going to fit in? It's like he's Jayson Tatum and he's coming off a major injury. He's not walking in the door being like I'm the number one again. Like that's just not who he
He
is.
ain't coming back to be no role player though.
He ain't coming back to be no role player, and I love that quote. I think for his first few weeks, he's going to be a hopefully top tier role player, and I think that that is his starting point, and that's not where he's going to end up being. The more playing time he gets, obviously, I think next season he's going to come back having hopefully played a little bit of playoff basketball, had a full off season, a full training camp. I think he'll be Jayson Tatum again next year. For this season, I think one, I think it's irresponsible for us to put that on him, whether it's the media, the Celtics, organization, anybody. Like, nobody should be like, we need you to come back and be Jayson Tatum so that everybody else can relax. Like, that's not happening, and I don't think that would be received well by the team. He doesn't carry himself that way, that he would walk in with the energy of, like, all right, like, I'm back. Everybody relax. Like, I'll carry us now. But I think this is like a good inflection point in the season. And again, like, I can't overstate this. We're playing on Friday. That'll be like 6 games in 9 days. That's crazy. Especially, and this is like, I was thinking back, there was a point earlier in the season where we had like 2 games in 11 days. And I don't know who's doing the NBA schedule, but they need to fucking chill. That's not nice to do to these guys. And yeah, I think it's fair to really be like missing the things that he provides, which is like a lot of rebounding from the wing position, a lot of playmaking that he can do on and off ball, and then obviously like his scoring and his defense are elite when he's at his best. We don't need it to be elite right now. What we need is to take some pressure off the other guys who are
We need
frankly seem
Jalen to
gassed.
not lead the NBA in field goal attempts. We need somebody to get him down into the lower 20s in field goal attempts.
Yes.
What do you
Also,
think Jayson Tatum means by 100%? Because every time he's been interviewed about this, he says, I'm not coming back till I'm 100%. I know what I feel like when I'm at 100%. And I'm not coming back till that point. If I was Jason Tatum's person, I would not advise that line.
agree.
I would say, I'm coming back to help the team. I'm coming back when I feel it's safe. I'm coming back when, my ankle feels well enough and the doctors sign off on it. But saying that you're waiting extra to come back at 100%, it sets a certain expectation. And then if you don't look 100% for a couple weeks, even if, I don't think anybody can reasonably expect Jayson Tatum to come back at the MVP level he was before. Maybe
But
some
they'll make
people
it a storyline
forget.
anyway.
Well, that's the thing. If he's saying he's at 100%, then there's going to be questions like, well, is he going to sit out now and like wait again? I think maybe some people forget just how good Jayson Tatum was before this injury. But he was a top 3, top 4 player in the NBA at worst.
Yeah.
Like, just a completely dominant offensive force. And it's not realistic to say he's going to come back to that this season. And I think that's an interesting kind of way he's phrasing it.
Yeah. So I think the problem with it, and again, it is just like a phrasing thing, and his PR person or whoever,
I think he means
just
it.
add one word. Like, maybe, but I like what it should be is I'm not coming back until I feel 100% healthy. Because when you say
I
I'm
don't
not
think
coming
that's.
back till I'm 100%, it implies like I'm not coming back until I'm MVP level, and
I
that's
think
not
that's what
happening
he's
this year.
implying. I
Yeah,
think
that's
Jason Tatum.
irresponsible PR work.
I'm sorry to tell you this, Matt. I think Jason Tatum believes in himself.
I believe in Jayson Tatum as well, but I also think you've got to part of it is like one of the hardest things that athletes who have gone through this kind of injury have talked about is like the mental hurdles that come with not only like the recovery process but reintegrating yourself into the game after such an extended period of time away, after such a traumatic injury. And I don't think crossing that mental hurdle is going to be made any easier by building expectations to a level that realistically like you should not be expecting from yourself, or nobody should be expecting from you. I read an article recently that was like, there are some Celtics examples of how this might play out. And one of them was like, worst case, it's Gordon Hayward when he came back. And the team was kind of like, they had done some stuff and
I'm
he needed
knocking
to.
on all of the wood around me
Yeah. No, but I
after
mean,
you said
like,
that.
he came back from a catastrophic injury to a team that had already like made an Eastern Conference Finals run without him, and there were already some personalities and the team had their own fit, and he tried to like work himself into it and he wasn't himself yet, and it took the better part like that season he just never really found himself. And then on the other end, it was like, yeah, KG, when he had that knee injury in 2010, was still playing, but
Stop
like
saying these things.
the injury happened. I'm not. But no, KG came out the next year after that injury, after he had had an off season and a training camp and everything, and looked like KG again. But immediately upon coming back from that injury, he was not 100% because that's a crazy thing to expect when
He
you're
made
coming back.
all-star teams after that. KG was never 2009 KG again.
Yeah, but he was never, MVP all like, but he was also in his like late, he was getting into his 30s at that
Yeah.
point. Jayson Tatum doesn't have that issue. I think the bigger problem is like, you can't expect yourself to, if he wants to say, fine, I'm not coming back until I'm 100% of who I was right before the injury, then he's not playing this year. Like that would be a reasonable expectation for him to come in and be like, yeah, first of all, it usually takes 10 to 12 months for NBA guys to fully recover from an Achilles injury. He, again, had the surgery much sooner, was able to get the best treatment right away, did all the things right. By everybody who's commented on it, who's been through that Achilles process, they've said he looks better earlier than they did. I
KG
think,
came back in 10 months, looked pretty much the same.
yeah,
I
I
just
mean,
needed to name one that didn't close a Celtics title window.
mm-hmm.
You were just doing like the darkest examples you could think of.
No, but I mean, I'm not talking about like the Celtics team. I'm talking about Jayson Tatum, like as a player. You can believe in yourself all you want, and I believe Jayson Tatum will be back to being an MVP caliber player. I don't think it's happening this year because that would be unprecedented in sports history. And I think that's like a stupid bar to hold yourself to,
He's not going to win
especially if you're
MVP,
like,
obviously.
no, but I don't think he's going to come back and be averaging, 29, 8, and 5. Like, that is not a reasonable standard for a guy who
Yeah.
hasn't played a basketball game in 10 months.
Well,
Like,
what I'm saying is we don't know. Like, we're not with Jayson Tatum in the gym. We don't know what he looks like. Jayson Tatum's in the gym, and he at least believes he's closing in on 100%. And it seems to me like what he means by that is what he's saying, which is 100%. And you can say, like, athletes have crazy belief in themselves, and they have to reach the level they do. So you can say it's unrealistic, but that does seem to be his expectation.
yeah, I'm more so concerned about, like, I don't want there to be either locker room issues or just like Jayson Tatum coming back is going to be the biggest storyline in the NBA to close out
Yeah.
the season. And
100%.
I don't love the added pressure of like, well, Jayson Tatum says he was going to be MVP Jayson Tatum again. And, he just came off an Achilles and he only dropped 6 points in his first game back. And now it's a storyline for the next week. And I don't want the rest of the season to be like, well, is Jayson Tatum really good yet? I don't think that's helpful for the
First
team.
Take is going to
Like,
say some crazy things the next
yeah.
month that
And
we do need to prepare ourselves for.
it's gonna bother me, but it's like
100% going to bother both of us.
yeah, but the bigger thing is that it doesn't bother like the Celtics locker room, and that's where, especially coming back to a team that's winning, that has built a lot of good habits. Like I don't want I want him to get his flowers and his respect and appreciation from the rest of the NBA writ large, which I think like people who know ball respect Jayson Tatum for how good he is. I don't want a 2 month Jayson Tatum distraction show every day on ESPN heading into like a playoff run where we're in a pretty solid position.
So I think two things. One, ESPN's gonna go crazy. They're wild topics. Whose team is this? Debates, all that stuff. I don't think it'll affect the Celtics locker room too much. I don't think the outside noise has kind of gotten in there the last few years. I mean, we've had to deal with so many whose team is this debates between
Yeah.
Jayson and Jalen the last 4 years. In the title run, this was like a constant Fox Sports, ESPN, who's better, Jalen or Jayson, every night. And it honestly didn't seem to affect anything on the court, which I think is a good sign. I also think both the guys trust Joe, and having that relationship with the coach is going to help down the stretch. So I'm not too concerned about this bleeding in, but it's going to be a thing. It's going to be a big story going down the stretch.
Yeah, especially because it's always been a whose team is it, and Jason has kind of always had the edge because he's been higher in
He's
those
been
MVP
better.
conversations. Yeah.
He's been the on ball offensive engine for us.
Yeah. Now Jaylen Brown has the perspective of like, no, I'm showing like I'm in the MVP race now. And I think it's just there's an added element that is just it's gonna make it more frustrating. How we started this conversation was the 100% comment, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I just don't like the stupid sports media having additional ammunition for stupid conversations when the reality of it is like, hey, can we talk about like how Jayson Tatum is going to help the basketball team on the floor, like how that's actually going to look, whether or not he's scoring 10 or 30? Because I think there are a lot of reasonable conversations to be had about like Jayson Tatum comes back and averages 10 points for the rest of the year. I still think he helps us win basketball games. If he comes back and is able to get 20, 30 points a game, like on any given night, I think that definitely helps us win basketball games. But I would like the storylines to be about like what do the Celtics need? How does he provide it? How does the fit actually work instead of essentially locker room drama?
I think that the biggest hurdle there, and again, I'm not in the gym with Jayson Tatum, so I don't know how he looks. Normally, when a player comes back from an injury like that, there's some rust just because they haven't played in so long. And I think there's going to be a decision that has to be made of what's best for the team on a given night versus what's best for the team going into the playoffs. And I think the most important thing going into the playoffs is that Jayson Tatum is allowed to get as close to Jayson Tatum as he can. And that's going to mean some inefficient shooting nights. That's going to mean he gets out there, feels out his one on one game in some regular season matchups where you kind of let him ISO. You let him take the ball at the top of the key and do that post up where he tries to score, or pass out, or bring the double. And it's going to take him a little bit to get a feel for that again. And I don't want the team to be afraid of outside noise, and I want them to do that, even if it means, 2 more losses this season because we let Jayson Tatum shoot.
Well, I think that's the other thing that is kind of fortunate about where the NBA is at, and we've had the tanking conversation and everything, but end of the season, how many basketball games there are that don't matter to one or both teams is a really good opportunity. Like, we're going to play some teams that are trying to lose that game, and it's like, all right, Jayson Tatum,
Yeah.
take 20 shots tonight because the Wizards aren't going to guard you. And just having that opportunity, I think, to close out the season is useful. At the end of the day, I'm just excited. I'm really looking forward to seeing him back on the court. Obviously, Celtics fans are gonna
And as
lose
much
their
as
minds.
as much as this pains me to say, there's going to be nights where Hugo Gonzalez's minutes need to get cut.
No, now you've crossed the line.
I'm sorry to say, there might be nights where Hugo would help us win more than Jayson Tatum, but getting Jayson Tatum to 100%, as close to 100% as possible by the playoffs, is going to be more important than giving Hugo 5 extra minutes.
You sound crazy right now.
I don't think I do. I think I sound
No.
very sane.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. So I wanted your opinion on this because this is
Yeah.
something that I wanted to talk about. Our three 3.5 young wings, right?
Dare you talk about Baylor Sharman that way?
So here's the I wasn't sure how you were going to read that because you could
I was
interpret
just
it as 3 young wings that includes Ron Harper and then Baylor Sharman is a half because he's not that young. Or is it 3 young wings and then Ron Harper counts as a half because he's not really in the rotation, but he's
I
getting
was
some minutes.
assuming you were dissing Baylor because
No, it
I
was
think you
more
were. I think that's what you meant.
when it came out of my mouth, it was more of a I wish Ron Harper was a fourth, but he's not there yet. I meant him as the half.
I think he's been playing really well.
Yeah, I
I
love
would
Ron
just call
Harper.
it 4. I wouldn't
Okay,
disrespect any of them. I would be a nice
that's
person.
I'm moving forward. I'm going to learn that and I'm going to take
Yeah.
that to heart. So our 4 young wings, obviously I think Ron Harper is going to lose the most minutes. Probably all of his minutes outside of garbage time once Tatum returns. What do you think about the Bill Simmons take that Baylor Shireman is just a stand-in for Jayson Tatum and that he
I
stands to lose the most minutes? Because right now, the way I'm seeing it is
I think it's Hauser who's going to lose the
really.
most minutes. Yeah. Well, I think that we've seen this with Joe, where I think he doesn't think of them all as just wings. He thinks of there's the guys with the guard skills and then the guys who have more size. And Baylor, and when we lost Anthony Simons and we went down a guard, you saw Baylor and Ron Harper Jr. just soak up all those minutes because they're the guys who can dribble a little bit, push it on the break. They have like just a little bit more guard skills. And they can kind of fit into that 2 spot. Then you have the wings with a little bit more size, which is Sam Hauser, Jordan Walsh, and Ugo. Their minutes stayed pretty flat when that happened. And it seems like he likes to have 2 guards, 2 wings, and a big out there. And that's kind of the formulation for a lot of these lineups, where when Jayson comes back, he does have some guard skills, but he's 6'10", and we're probably not going to have him starting at that position. Um, I would kind of like it personally if Baylor lost the minutes because I like those lineups where Brown's at the 2 and he can kind of post up smaller guys. And then Tatum's at like the 4, so he might get more bigs switched onto him. But I think in all honesty, it's going to be Sam Hauser going to the bench, back to kind of his role playing with Peyton Pritchard, where they have like a nice 2-man game off the bench where they kind of run those like screen and pops and relocations and pass it back and forth to each other while they hunt a 3. And then Baylor has shown that he is one of our best perimeter defenders on the team and can play that point of attack defense and then just kind of throw in some chaos to the starting unit. Because we don't need a ton of shot creation when you have Derek White, Jaylen Brown, and Jayson Tatum out there. And just him as kind of like a agent of chaos next to them.
Yeah, I think I'm surprised because I really like Tatum and Hauser's 2-man game and how many open looks Tatum has been able to create in past years for Sam Hauser and how much Hauser has thrived off that.
Well, that was
I
him
don't,
playing with the bench units. Like, we would
yeah,
play Tatum plus bench, and it would be him, Pritchard, and Hauser. And those guys could just, like, sprint around, and he would find them for open threes. Which I think we could see that lineup again, but I just don't think it'll be with the starters.
yeah. Uh, do you think going into the playoffs, and I know we've had this conversation, but now that Tatum has been confirmed, or it's a when, not an if, who's not making that playoff rotation out of those guys? Because I'm sad to say it. I think it
Jordan
might be
Walsh.
Jordan Walsh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I think Jordan Walsh is out, and then Ugo's minutes are going to be kind of spotty.
yeah.
I think, listen, I can't believe we're almost an hour into this podcast and have not mentioned Ugo Gonzalez's 18 and 16
Career
game.
night. 18,
Career night
16, 3 steals, 2 blocks, a little
was
bit of
everywhere.
everything with some Spanish olive oil drizzle on there. It was perfect. First one to do it since Larry Bird.
Listen, I don't think he's going to play a ton in the playoffs. Like, I think he'll be in the rotation. He'll be a valued defender, and if we go down in a series, we could see his minutes go up. I think 2 years from now, it's going to be hard not to start. Like, the development he's shown, the potential that's there. If he was on a worse basketball team, he would make one of the all-rookie teams. And he's
Yes.
probably going to finish this year as the best plus-minus rookie of all time, dethroning Tim Duncan, which is just insane to say.
It's not bad.
It's
Not
not bad
bad.
at all. I'd take it
especially
over an
considering,
all-rookie second team.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's kind of already looking forward. There's this weird psychological thing going on in my head right now where I'm like, yeah, this year the Celtics have overperformed every expectation. We're in a good spot headed into the playoffs. We've got Jayson Tatum coming back. The East is kind of weak right now. Oklahoma City has been sliding for a couple months now. We've got like a top 4 record in the league. It feels kind of open, and that's very exciting.
Yeah.
And I'm also kind of like, yeah, but next year is the real year. Because next year
I
we've
don't
got
know.
Ugo and Jordan will get another year of development. So will Ron Harper. So will Baylor Shireman. But those two, I'm like, I want them to really pop next year. Jayson Tatum will be coming back having had some basketball experience and then a full off-season training camp, all that stuff. And just that is going to be a very exciting. I'm not going to get too far ahead of myself, but I think next year is going to be very, very fun for basketball fans and for Celtics fans. So
Next
will the
year's
rest
gonna,
of this year. But
yeah, next year is going to be awesome. This year, I heard Stool Greeny describe this season as the night-to-night excitement and overperformances of the Isaiah Thomas year
yes,
with the playoff upside of the 2024 season.
disagree with that part.
Let's see how they look, because like you said, this is pretty open. Like, I don't think there's a team in the East this we can't beat.
Yeah.
And a few months from now, Jayson Tatum is going to be looking better, I think.
100%. I think there's this Celtics team does absolutely have a chance to win the title. At the same time, have you looked at our record against the top 3 or 4 seeds in each conference? It's not good. It's not good.
We didn't have Jayson Tatum for any of those games, is my
We
counterpoint.
I don't think that in itself is going to be the biggest difference maker. I think it's going to be like we spent it.
Jayson Tatum coming back is the biggest story at the end of the season because it matters the most to who wins the championship.
Yes.
And if he's back and some facsimile of Jayson Tatum, I think we'd be the favorites to win the championship. If he's not, we're not going to win the championship.
If
and
Jayson
depending
Tatum
on kind of
comes
what
back,
percentage he's at is going to determine.
Well, he
who
said
wins
it's
the
100, so we should be fine.
If it's 100, I think we're winning the NBA championship.
I think we're getting to the finals. I think it depends who we play.
There's also, it's one of those years where there's been a lot of injuries, and I expect there to continue to be a lot of injuries.
The Celtics have miraculously mostly avoided the injury thing.
And you never
knocking on wood.
You never root for injuries, but it is going to be a playoffs that is unpredictable.
Yeah.
And you could get to the finals and go up against a Shea-less OKC. You could go to the finals and go up against a Wemby-less Spurs. There's a lot of different ways for this to play out. Also, we have a lot more playoff experience than I think any team we could face. There's a veteran element to this as well.
I think, and that's the argument that, I forget if it was Broussard or somebody was saying, but like, yeah, Detroit has done a fantastic job this year. They've obviously catapulted themselves and stayed at the top of the East. They really don't have anybody with like deep playoff experience.
Derek White's been in some games.
Jaylen Brown has been in games since he was Ugo's age. He was winning conference.
When he was Ugo's age, he was defending LeBron in the conference finals and smacking the floor.
Yeah.
That's how long he's been doing.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think, if Jayson Tatum comes back, I think it's also, hopefully, I think part of it is if Jayson Tatum comes back and he's 90 to, like, whatever percentage he is, but he's Jayson Tatum, I think that in itself does a huge amount. Obviously, taking some of the scoring load off, covering some areas in our defense. I think we're already a phenomenal team, rebounding team, but he can only add to that. What I'm curious about, and what I think, like, what makes me hesitate on, like, if Tatum looks like Tatum, are we winning a title? Is, like, are Derek White and Peyton Pritchard going to remember how to shoot better? Which Derek White, he's still having these games. He had a great game tonight, but it is really like,
this is insane. Like,
I have no doubt
White is still Derek White. There's no
Derek White
question
absolutely wins us most of the basketball games that this Celtics team has won. I don't know if they win without Derek White. I'm fully transparent about that. At the same time, we're going to need him to shoot better, especially from three in the playoffs.
Matt, that
Because
is a
that is a lot more.
defense Eastern Conference Defensive Player of the Month you're talking about right now.
Goddamn
Okay?
right, and he deserves,
Have
frankly,
some respect for the office, okay?
right. I've never questioned his defense, not once in my
So
life. However,
Ever.
when he's shooting the three ball, he is not playing defense. So I'm going to need that. And Peyton Pritchard,
He doesn't
again,
miss
just
clutch shots.
Peyton Pritchard?
Derek White.
Oh, okay.
Peyton
Yeah.
Pritchard takes
He's the
heaves.
all-time league leader in buzzer beater
Leaders.
threes from the half-court line. So
I count
I'll
it.
take that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but I mean, it's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to. I think we've got Cooper Flag on Friday, assuming I think he's missed like 8 games in a row with a foot thing. So I think he's playing. But that'll be a fun matchup, and we'll see if we get any updates on the JT front. And
I think it's going to be a big game. I think we're going to have a pretty excited podcast pretty soon after that one.
all right, I'm
So
looking
we'll catch
forward
you
to
then.
it.
Thank you all for listening. Remember to subscribe. We're on anywhere you get your podcasts, YouTube, Apple, Spotify. So see you all next time.